Right then. Okay, so this time we're talking about duty of care in the industry and what duty of care means and what it entails. Um, so you typically hear duty of care when it's like concerning social services for like children and the elderly, people with additional needs, that kind of thing. Um, but we have a duty of care in the dog training industry as well. Um, so I mean, there's a lot of people that have come into the dog training industry who majored in psychology, or they did psychology at university first, depending if they're English or American. Um, and psychology is a big part of it with dogs because uh, is my pet hate. Pet hate when people say, I can't stand people. Because if you can't stand people, you're in the wrong job.
Yeah.
Because whether you like it or not, you might think that dog training is this glorified, flashy job, and it isn't. It is hospitality, and we're not better than anybody else. So I don't know why people put themselves on pedestals or people put dog trainers and behaviorists on pedestals because we're no different than anybody else. We're not better than anybody else. And the snobbery, for a start, has got to stop because we are in the hospitality industry or the counselling services industry. Um, because if you are a decent dog trainer or behaviorist, your owner will confide in you about their personal life. And you can put up all the boundaries you want, but human nature is to confide in somebody that they trust. So if they're talking to you about their dog getting them down and the struggles that they're having with their dog, naturally their personal life will fall into it. Even as mentor, their personal lives fall into it. It's a part of human nature. It's something that you've got to accept. And if you don't like people, get out of the industry. Because this attitude has got to stop. Yes, we all get annoyed, we all get fed up. But at the same time, you don't see nurses at A&E turning around and saying, I can't stand people. Why aren't they educated? Why don't they know what a hematoma is? You don't see nurses and doctors saying that at the A&E. Why do we have the right to belittle people because they don't know certain things about dog training, dog care, all the rest of it? It's just not done. And if you want to make jokes, take the mickey, do it behind closed doors. Don't be creating little cults in dog training classes with other dog trainers or at workshops and making clients feel paranoid that you're talking about them, because in your class there is guaranteed to be at least one person with mental health problems. They took it personally and you've made them paranoid that you're talking about them and they're never coming back and you've hurt them deeply. You could be talking about the weather for all we know, but to that person and how they feel, you've hurt them incredibly. So save that type of stuff for behind closed doors. If you need to do it, you do it in private. Um, you know, you don't get to belittle people because they don't know stuff. Like the biggest ones at the moment, bitchy things that you hear or read on Facebook and social media. Oh, they feed their dogs pedigree. They're a shit dog owner. No, 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 no. Instead, you can do something productive and say, I tell you what, there's this website called www.allaboutdogfood.co.uk.
Yeah.
And if you type in your chosen dog food, it will tell you the nutritional rating and the value. And then you'll be able to see whether your food is a good food or whether you need to switch to something in the higher 90 percentage.
That's a really good example, to be fair, because if you've got a class full of people and you say to them, there's a website online which I'd like you all to go to when you get home from class. It's called All About Dog Food. It's got everything on there that you need to know about what food you're feeding. Take a look at the nutritional rating. If it's below 85, below the 90s, we need to have a look at that. If it's not great, fantastic, we don't need to look at it. It's a very important part of behavior, and it can affect the way that we see the behavior of the dog. So please go look at it. You don't stand there and say, what are you feeding your dog? What are you feeding your dog? What are you feeding your dog? what are you feeding your, it's just not nice. And it just isolates people completely, because people, it's all about education. And then I said to them, right, so when you get home, if it's below that, send me a little message and I'll give you some options that can help you and a better food. It's not about standing there and naming and shaming people, because they don't know no different. It's just what you know and what you've been brought up with. And if pedigree is part of what people know and love, and they don't know any different, and what we have to do is educate them, but in the right way, without naming and shaming people and thinking, oh God, I feel awful, I've been giving my dog pedigree and I got named and shamed in class. They aren't going to come back. They are not going to come back.
Yeah. And it's not just about food either. Like, you've got to bear in mind people's financial situation. So you can all shout as much as you want that if a dog owner can't meet a vet bill, they shouldn't have a dog. But I see professionals crowdfunding because they can't afford vet bills, and I don't see anybody calling them out and saying you're an abomination if you can't afford that £7,000 operation for your dog. You shouldn't even be a dog trainer, let alone an owner. And I haven't seen any of that. So it's okay when professionals do it, but when a dog owner does it, they're the scum of the earth, and it's got to stop, because you're alienating these people. There are people, a great example, disabled people. We are the poorest people in every country. We're a marginalized community. Doesn't matter what our background is, our ethnics or anything like that. We are the poorest people in every single country, because we're limited to how much we can work. We're limited to work opportunities because people think we're useless, and people have got prejudiced ideas about us. What you will find is that the GP, the therapists, and the health team workers, regardless of their job in the NHS or the private industry, always recommend to disabled people to have a dog, because a dog will supply them with the emotional support that they need, whether this dog is an assistance dog or just a companion, and it needs normalizing. And these people may not be well enough to afford vet bills. I know people that have nearly died because they've refused to go into hospital before getting a foster care for their dog. I know people that have skipped meals because they'd rather feed their dog. And the snobbery and looking down on people has got to stop. You've got no right. You're not better than anybody else. If you can afford vet surgeries that are £7,000 up, £10,000, brilliant, good for you. But don't look down on other people. That's not our job. And if we're doing that, we don't deserve to be dog trainers, because as far as I'm concerned, dogs are the most forgiving creatures on the planet. And you see these dogs that have been horribly abused within an inch of their life, yet they still love people. And if we're working, training and caring for these animals that are this awesome, we should be the same and do the dogs a favor and pay it back. And the snobbery really has got to stop. And if your client turns up with an extension lead, so what? Have some leads to hand in your van or your training facility and say to them, extension leads can be a little bit dangerous, so why don't we try this one instead? And if you like it, you can buy it off me at the end of the class. Big deal. Or set up a payment plan with them so that they're off to the right start with their dog. And the same with a harness. If they're turning up with a choker, a half choke, slip lead, whatever, have some harnesses to hand and say, shall we just fit your dog for a harness? And then set up a payment plan, or ask them to pay for it if they can, sort of thing. But then that person's left your class empowered with the correct equipment that they need. You've not made a big deal out of it, and you've not made them to look an idiot. And then, like, being breedist, for want of a better word, pulling people down for the breeds that they've got. We see it all the time from vets on social media. And this hurts people who have these breeds. And people don't necessarily get these breeds to make tons of money breeding. And they don't necessarily get them because they think, I want to have a dog that's going to have major medical issues. Some people get them because they do have medical issues and they can financially support that dog to get the help that they need. Some are rescues. And some people just like the breed. It's not a crime. But when vets are calling owners out and saying that the breeds need to be extinct, and the owners are cruel for having them, that type of thing, stop. Because you're attacking an owner. An owner's not responsible for a breeder. It goes much bigger, and the breeders need to be spoken to, and they need to be stopped from making money from these breeds that do struggle. And I know it's down to ethics and it's a moral compass, but blaming the owner is not going to get you anywhere apart from lose that owner. And then they may end up drifting off to a balance trainer or a compulsion based trainer because they might be nice to them. And that's something we're seeing in forestry a lot, isn't it, Natalie?
Yeah, I mean, a good example, I've got chihuahuas, so I've been to the vets before and they've come in, looked at a chihuahua and been like, has it got a muzzle? I'm like, no, didn't need a muzzle. Right, well, we have a few in that are quite snappy. So if you put a muzzle on it, I'm like, it doesn't need a muzzle, just do what you need to do. And it's heartbreaking because it's just been pinning that particular breed being snappy. And that's because people have said over time, chihuahuas are snappy ankle biters. And it's really sad. And then when they've done all the stuff, they're like, really good, this dog, isn't it? Like, yeah, because I've worked really hard. So you don't have to put a muzzle on it. And it, it is heartbreaking going somewhere like the vets. And if somebody's not strong enough to deal with that, they go away from that experience really, really sad. Like some people's dog may never had a muzzle on, and they're finding a muzzle in the back to put on your dog, and you're like, why does it need a muzzle?
My owners have had the same with German Shepherds, Rhodesian Ridgebacks.
Yeah.
These dogs are soft as grease.
Yeah. And terrified.
And all it does is lose the clients. And then the clients will ask me for recommendation for a different vet because they refuse to be treated like that. And so they should. They're entitled to say that, and they're entitled to switch. So just like dog training, they're entitled to switch to somebody else.
Yeah.
You'll never win them all. It doesn't matter how nice and fluffy you are, you'll never win them all because everybody's different. Humans are all individual. They've got their own prefixed ideas of what training should be. And if they don't come into your class open-minded, you might lose them, but it doesn't mean that you're a bad person.
Yeah.
It just means that they're set in their ways and they've got a certain opinion about how dogs should be handled. And the snobbery amongst each other as well with dog trainers in the industry. Stop it. You're hurting people. The bitching, the backbiting, the sniping, the nasty comments across social media, or having your little tit for tat WhatsApp conversations and that kind of stuff, it always gets back to them, and you're hurting people.
You've got to make people feel included when they go on courses as well. Don't make people feel isolated. Trainers that are going on training courses, because it's awful going on a course and being sat in your van eating your sandwich, and everyone's having the clicky group because they've all been best friends for the last 20 years. It's not nice. If somebody's there on your course and they might be new to it and you've got all your friends there supporting you, include that new person, because that's really, really important, because it can put somebody off, and it can also, they can then tell other trainers, like, don't go to that because I went to that and I felt excluded. It was awful.
Because word gets around.
It does, yeah. It does. And it's not nice. It's really not nice being excluded from stuff. It's happened to me loads of times. And you've got to stand up for yourself a little bit, but not everyone's capable of doing that.
No.
Some people are quite outspoken, and some people are quiet and they just go home and cry about it. I'm quite happy to say stuff because I'm quite outspoken, but in some circumstances I'm not always like that. It depends on the person or what I'm dealing with. If it all gets too much, then I'm not outspoken enough as what I probably should be in some circumstances. But do make people feel included.
Yeah,
it's really sad, and you don't know how that person's feeling. That person could be depressed, could be going through all kinds of other things, and then you just isolating them for that one exercise or that one course it could tip them over the edge. And that's the harsh reality of it. there's a lot of suicide awareness and things like that at the minute. You could be the reason why somebody does something.
And that might sound harsh, but I've been to loads of workshops and seminars in person, and they're all clicky. And I've been sat on my own
Yeah,
with chairs empty around me because I've been treated like a leper because I'm not in their little gang.
yeah,
And it does hurt. And you come away feeling deflated and like you're never going to be a part of the industry or respected within the industry because people are just being clicky. And it's pathetic. We're not at school.
yeah,
And I always make a point in my courses, because when I see people huddling in the little groups, make everyone switch seats, and I make them sit next to somebody they never met and make them speak to each other, just like at school. And people might think that that's harsh, but it's the only way that people have a good experience at a workshop when they're forced to speak to somebody that they don't know.
yeah,
At one workshop I was at with a Scottish rescue, and they're all wearing their identical fleeces, and I was really struggling with my disability and was pushing myself, and I was in extreme pain. And yeah, I kept shuffling because I was in extreme pain, and we was expected to sit for like 4 or 5 hours at a time. And there was tutting and huffing and puffing and all this, and that made me feel like crap. I did after the break, I didn't want to go back in. So I had to choose somewhere else to sit and just hope that the next person I sat next to was going to be nice.
yeah,
But that forever sticks in my mind, and I'll never ever have dealings with that company ever because their staff are obnoxious and unkind and cruel. And there's no need for that behavior. And just like a client, I've carried that with me, and I will never have dealings with that company.
yeah.
You know, because it's not fair. And that's what people walk away from because that's human nature. You walk away from the hurt remembering who those people are.
And you never forget. You never
No.
forget. And I've done the same, like been on a course all day and then halfway through you just want to go home. But you pay a lot of money for these courses. Shouldn't have to feel like that.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what it feels like to be part of the gang, but you know, it's just not nice.
No.
It's not nice.
And people keep forgetting as well, like, only 7 years ago, 7 years ago, Dr. Sophia Yin killed herself. And in her suicide note, it was about compassion fatigue and not being able to handle it anymore because, she was also a vet, but it affects dog trainers as well. And it's not spoken about enough at all. And everything you do leaves residue. So if you think about having a bowl of water in front of you or you step in a puddle and how it ripples, you have a ripple effect. And how you treat others and how you carry yourself affects others. And like even in the animal training academy, we call it ripple makers, but we turn it into a positive, don't we? With like toot your own horn. So one day you'll say about something good that you did and that you feel proud of. And the community is all about empowering each other and empowering yourself and trying to lure you out of your shell, but in a positive way so that nobody's getting hurt.
Yeah.
But yeah, even on Facebook, when you're lying and saying you've got hundreds of clients a week and you're amazing and everybody knows what I'm on about. When people just big themselves up and make everybody else feel that big, that's the problem. Because people know what they're doing, and when they say, "I didn't realize I was doing that," yes, you do, because for some reason you want to dominate social media and you want to make sure that your personality dominates everybody else. And that's the only domination in dog training. Dogs aren't dominant. They don't want to be the popular kid at school. They don't want to make other feel downtrodden and upset and hurt. That's what the professionals are doing. And it's got to stop. It's got to stop towards each other. And it's got to stop towards dog owners. We're not at school. We're not kids. And like nobody's in competition with each other. Yes, you might be having a hard time in your local area stopping, well, not stopping, but trying to be bigger and having more of a presence in the group on trainers and these people that set up Facebook pages and they claim they've got 20 years experience and they're just lying the heads off. You might need to have a bigger presence as a force 3 trainer because you're surrounded by, balance trainers and you're worried about animal welfare, fair dues, but there's a way to do it. And it's not by tearing other people down. And, it's not this competition thing, because if there's two force free trainers in an area, so what? Work together, collaborate. Why do you need to be horrible about it? Why do you need to try and do the other person down and spread false information about them? But also on Facebook, your presence goes much bigger than hurting the next trainer to you in your area. What you're doing is hurting lots of trainers on your Facebook, because you're making out you the best thing since sliced bread. And I said this to Natalie all the time and other people that I mentor, because you affect these people when you do this behavior. Natalie, what do you say whenever you see this stuff? What happens?
Oh, lots of things, but it makes you feel rubbish, and you're like looking at it like, oh, I can't believe, look at that. And it's horrible. You just all the time looking at what other people are doing. And I'm really guilty for looking at what other people are doing out, Sasha.
Terrible. I have to tell you all the time to stop.
Yeah.
I
have got better.
you try.
Yeah.
You want to leave the industry altogether. You don't feel like you're any good at anything, and then you compare your dogs to theirs. And we've all been guilty of it. I've just learned to see past it for the absolute rubbish it is.
Yeah.
But you're doing better, but you still end up going back sometimes, don't you?
Yeah. And you've got to try and look past it all. As easier said than done, I know. But you've got to just focus on what you're doing instead of what everybody else is doing. And it is hard and it's frustrating. But it's really easy, because especially like there's a lot of platforms now. There's TikTok, there's Instagram, there's Facebook, there's all kinds of things going on. People are doing some Snapchat even. There's a lot of information and videos out there, and they trend on what we look at. So for somebody in the dog training industry, it's going to pull through training videos. So unfortunately, you see it all the time on your feeds, because that's what it pulls in for that person. So sometimes it's really hard to get away from it, because it pulls on what you research and what you look up. So sometimes it's hard to look past it, because it's just in your face all the time. But you've got to look and think, oh well, actually they're doing that, but I can do this. Yeah. And you got, like we were saying the other day, it's that video or that picture is a really, really small amount of something. It could be like 13 seconds of something, and that's nothing. You could go, wow, look at that, it's amazing. And it might just be a 5-second video, and the rest of if you'd filmed them all there, you might see the very different story. It's just somebody falling lucky sometimes.
Yeah.
Capturing something.
And it's clever editing. So a photo is 0.01 seconds, that's it. That's how fast it is to take a picture. Video is clever editing. And you start to learn to see telltale signs when you start to wire your brain differently to look at things. They're in a quiet area with no distractions, or they're indoors doing all this fancy stuff, but you don't see what their life is like outside of that room or video. You don't see if they're having reactivity problems on the lead. You don't see if they're having problems at the vets. Nobody's perfect.
No,
nobody's perfect.
As trainers, we need to stand up and show our flaws a little bit more, to make people in the general public realize that it's not always perfect for us. Just because we're dog trainers doesn't mean say our dogs are perfect. The more you're transparent and show that you have issues, the more somebody's going to open up to you and say, I seen the other day that you have this problem, I've had that as well, can you help me with that? They're not going to open up to you if you've trick dog champion of the world, but you've got no issues. They're just not. It's not approachable. Tasha's really open about stuff that she's gone through. I'm pretty transparent about stuff that I've gone through. You've got to be transparent about problems that you're having, haven't you? Like, I had a big thing about stairs and consent with mine, and like picking them up, and it's taken me a long time to work through that, but I admitted it myself, and I publicly showed people that I was having trouble with mine in the stairs. you know, and in recent foster with problems outside on the lead, and it's good to show that you've got problems so people can sort of say, I've got a problem as well. Nobody's perfect.
No, not at all. And the thing is as well, for anybody who bullies you or belittles you, there will be somebody fighting in your corner.
Yeah.
And it may not seem like that at the time, but there will definitely be somebody fighting in your corner.
Yeah.
And don't get drawn into it like on TikTok and all that kind of stuff. I use TikTok a lot to escape from Facebook because to me Facebook's full of drivel and just nastiness and it's toxic. And on TikTok, my guilty pleasure is to watch cosplayers because it's not real, it's fantasy, and I can escape the dog world and I can escape all the nastiness. But as Natalie said, it does generate views of dog training and stuff, and I see dog training that hurts me. I see people who say, "Wow, I wish I could do that," and then I have to snap myself back and realize it's just a short video. It's a 60-second video. This doesn't prove or show anything. And again, you've got the loud personalities on there who know how to dominate and manipulate social media. Like this past weekend, for example, with the sheep, and that's all I'm going to say. Those three people do it every Friday night, get a little bit drunk and leery, and they will do something to trigger the force free community because that's what they do. And every time people bite, they're winning and they're getting exactly what they want. And all you're doing is boosting their views, boosting their accounts, and making them bigger, which is increasing their ego. So don't bite. Like when I see horrible abusive videos on TikTok with animals because they are horrible and abusive, I will scroll past and I will report it to TikTok. Chances are they won't do anything because it's already got 100,000 views, which is exactly what social media wants. But I can then sleep at night knowing that I reported a horrible video. I've not contributed to their views counter. I've not shared it. I've not commented it. So I've not boosted it in any way. And this is the other duty of care that we've got as professionals, or even if it's clients, general public. If people don't engage with these videos, we can make them disappear.
Yeah.
But whether you comment and you're getting angry or sharing it or viewing it, you are boosting the engagement and you're making that account more and more popular. And we've all got a duty of care to stop and scroll on past. And I know it's hard, but at the end of the day, your comment's going to fall on deaf ears anyway. That person's got what they wanted, their 15 minutes of fame,
Yeah.
and you just contributed to it without sounding awful, but you have.
Just by being a keyboard warrior. It's better
Yeah,
just silent.
exactly. And the nastiness and the bullying, especially with the force free community, has got to stop as well. Trying to outdo each other being more force free. So people say you're not being force free enough. You're not doing enough for animal welfare. Just because somebody doesn't share every second of their day on Facebook doesn't mean that they're not making big waves or again ripples in a positive way. It just means they're not shouting about it on Facebook. Like it goes back to having to put it on Instagram, taking a selfie, giving a homeless person some money or a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
To me, if you're doing that about force free on Facebook, social media, you know better than that. And you are that person who's doing a selfie with a homeless person for clout. And calling people out saying that they're not doing enough to me isn't good enough. For all you know, they might be really busy and they might have back-to-back clients and they're too busy to engage in pettiness on social media. For all you know, they're making big changes within their community as far as force free is going. They might have they might be part of the Pet Professional Guild trade program where they're trading in these horrible tools and they might be making huge changes to their community.
Yeah.
Just because you're not getting the clout that you want by people all bowing down to you and worshipping you because you've got a big voice on social media, it doesn't mean that other people aren't doing stuff, and calling them out again is bullying.
Yeah.
And it's got to stop, and trying to outdo each other has got to stop because we're all in it for the clients and the dogs at the end of the day. And I'm going to keep saying it until people stand up and recognize. And she stops being a part of Google Archives. Dr. Sophia Ying killed herself. And we don't know how many other dog trainers out there have killed themselves. There is no statistics. There is for vets because vets is a regulated industry. If we was a regulated industry, we probably have statistics for suicide amongst dog trainers.
Yeah.
And it's got to stop. And it's like Natalie said, with the you might have pushed that person over the edge, whether you like it or not.
Mm.
Your words hurt and stay with people.
Yeah, they do. They do. And it's you've got to remember that as much as we're all quick to say stuff sometimes, but it's the implications of what we're saying sometimes that can really hurt people. And if you don't really know that person very well, it could be really sensitive.
Yeah.
And if you do know them really well, you've got that relationship there, then you've got more leeway to say certain things, or saying don't do that, or that's not nice, or calling your friends out on it. That's fine if you know that person really, really well to be able to do that. Great. But if you don't do it.
Yeah.
Because it's dangerous territory. You just don't know what that person's going through.
No.
Especially with a lot of lockdowns and COVID, people are really struggling mentally and getting back up. A lot of people's businesses have been shut for a long period, and some have maybe just been starting out and they're trying to regain business and get the name for themselves in the industry. So it's a strange time for people. Very strange time to help people get sort of a bit of traction and getting back to doing stuff, and that's a big thing for people. And if somebody wants to stay at home for a day, then let them do that. Don't shame them in doing that because the bucket's full. Oh, why aren't you doing class this week? Oh, it's a bit much. Why? You've had, and it could be really sensitive to somebody.
And people take the mickey out millennials that were a bit, well, basically that we're hippies about mental health days and stuff. But I think with the most switched on generation, we've actually been nicer to each other. Not everybody, because no, not every millennial is nice, definitely not. But those of us who preach kindness and stuff genuinely mean it. And like the epidemic, all the epidemic has shown is that people can be absolutely vile. People have died, have been dying, are dying, and all people care about is being angry and nasty and slagging people off and just being generally unkind. And it's like, what's the point? What's the point?
Yeah, people have been a lot worse, I think, since lockdown. Clients and people want you to reply to them instantly because a lot of people are used to being at home now and they want this instant response from people, whether it be 1 o'clock in the morning. I've had people ring me at 1 in the morning about classes and they're like, why aren't you answering? And it's such strange times, and I've seen it in other industries. I've seen on Facebook recently a carpet fitter had a woman message, ringing him at midnight asking for a carpet quote. Like, why are we doing this to people? These people have got lives as well. They're running businesses. Would you who in the right mind messages someone about something like that at that time? It's just crazy.
I've had it years ago, way before COVID. Always had it in my county. People have this instant gratification need. And it's just stupid because you're not going to answer someone at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then you get another nasty message saying, I'm taking my business elsewhere. Okay, because clearly you're a difficult person to be working with in the first place. And you think that self-employed people should be there at drop of a hat and never sleep, clearly, or have a life of their own. And again, it's the same with professionals. Professionals are just as guilty of it with each other. Harassing the other one until the answer. What if they're busy? What if they're training their own dog? What if they're just trying to have some downtime? Nobody's entitled enough to control somebody's other life to that point and go, will you answer? I've seen it on comments, on posts, screeching, will you answer me? Will you answer me over and over again? And all it does is make you look so silly and entitled, and it's just not okay. And it goes back to with if you know somebody and you disagree with something that they've said, phone them.
Yeah.
Because text can be misconstrued all the time.
Yeah, and especially, if you did, people have got hidden problems that we don't see, like someone might be dyslexic or someone might have other issues that makes it difficult, or they might have sight issues, struggling with messaging. It can be any kind of disability, but we might not always see it. So bear with people, you know, and we might have got a word wrong here and there, or something might not read right, you know, and it happens. Be kind to people, you know. It's really hard, and I've had a prime example of it today. So I had a class at a certain time, and for some unknown reason, the time was right for me on Facebook, but everyone else had a different time. So I had some people who didn't turn up, and they were screenshotting me. I'm like, where are you? You're running late. And they were like, well, it's not for another hour. I'm like, well, everyone's here, but my email had the right time. To me on Facebook, it had the right time, but to everyone else, it was the wrong time. And that's pure technology. And you know what? Everyone was really nice, but it could have gone really badly. You know, in that instance, people could have been, I could have had a lot of backlash for that. And that's no fault of mine. So I felt lucky today because everyone were really nice about it. But sometimes little things like that, if them people had attacked me for getting for the Facebook having that error, it could have been really awful.
Because technology fails all the time.
Yeah.
There's no end of time I've had messages come through and not seen them for 2-3 days because it hasn't been highlighted.
Yeah.
And there's no notification to say that you got a message.
Yeah.
So there's nothing about ignoring the person, didn't receive the message.
Yeah.
But you've also got to have a cut-off point of what time is it unreasonable to start messaging somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And professionals say no, say, I'll get back to you in the morning. That's okay to say that. If you're in bed and someone says to you, can you help me when my dog is doing da-da-da-da, say, thank you for your message. I'll get back to you tomorrow. Don't feel that you have to answer that person instantly with a response. It's okay to say you're in bed. It's okay to say you're spending time with your family, because you're just as entitled as the next person to do that.
Absolutely.
Stand up for yourself and say, sorry, it's just 10:15. I've just got myself in bed. I'll message you tomorrow.
And I had to learn that the hard way with myself because I was answering people at stupid hours to make everybody happy. 9 times out of 10, they didn't book your services.
Yeah, it's just somebody trying to get some free information, to get some help, and they're not even interested in, I've had somebody last week who messaged me in the middle of the night, midnight. I woke up in the middle of the night, responded to them and said, yeah, there's a class at this time. I've never heard back from that person.
And some people take shit out of boredom.
Yeah.
Genuinely
just looking for something to do.
Got nothing to do. Oh, and they're looking for recommended pages or groups.
Yeah.
I'll message this person because I'm bored.
Yeah.
And then for people with hidden disabilities like myself, that causes a lot of anxiety and stress.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn that 8 o'clock is my switch off time. So if I'm not answering an email or message by 8 p.m, tough luck. I'll deal with it the next day.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth my health and burning out because somebody may or may not engage with a service, or they was bored and sent a message.
Yeah. And it's hard to fall into this category of like getting up in the night and replying to people, because you get sleepless nights over it, like worrying about replying to people on time. It's their loss. If they message you in the middle of the night and then by 5 o'clock in the morning they've said, right, I've taken the business elsewhere, then that's fine. Chances are you don't want that person anyway, because if they're being like that, they're not nice people. They're not the kind of people you want in your life, as harsh as it sounds.
And if you're the same as me, because this needs to be said as well, because it's not said enough at all. If you're having to work virtually because you're disabled and like me, you're allergic to the vaccination, or whatever your reasons are for not being ready to go back into the real world, especially now how vindictive it is, well done.
Yeah, that's fine.
And no one can judge you for that. And I've had tons of people come to me wanting one-to-one dog training when I say, I'm very sorry, I'm only doing virtually, never hear from them again.
Yeah.
Don't care, because they're not the type of people that I want to work with if they can't even give virtual a shot, because that's half the problem, is that, and we do see this as an industry, so this isn't a shock to anybody. We always say that socialization is not about puppy parties, or those of us who have ethics say it's not about puppy parties, and all these people want is puppy parties because they got a puppy through the lockdown and they want a puppy party. So you have to step back at some point and say, oh, hang on a minute. So because you finally got a puppy through lockdown, which is in itself unethical, but you know, hey ho,
Yeah.
politics. You want me to put myself at risk and other people at risk of getting COVID and possibly dying because you want to socialize your puppy. At some point, this needs to be said. Hairdressers have had it. People who are my friends who are hairdressers, they've been expected through lockdown to just pop round someone's house to give them a haircut. So at some point, people have stopped caring about human life
Yeah.
and have been expecting people through lockdown not to just break the law, but put their health at risk because they're selfish.
Mhm.
And yeah, sure, you can't get your hair done virtually, but dog training, behavior modification is something you can get done virtually. I was doing virtual one-to-one sessions way before COVID with great success,
Yeah.
all over the world. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with virtual. All it means is that the dog trainer is not going to be there to hold the lead for you, but
Yeah.
we shouldn't be doing that anyway. We
Yeah.
can go around the streets with you. We can go into town with you. Hell, if you want to go for a day trip, we can be with you that in the hour of that new environment. That's how good virtual is. You know, and it's lower overheads, which means it's less cost to you because we haven't got fuel to worry about, wear and tear on the car, all that kind of stuff. But I do just want to say to my, you know, disabled peers or any of my peers who are still doing virtual because they don't feel comfortable going back out into the real world, or ethically they see that virtual is better for the dog's behavior and the dog's welfare, good on you. And don't worry about what other people are doing. If everyone else is flocking out to do one-to-ones and classes, good for them. But at the same time, no one can belittle you or do you down because you're not comfortable or ready to do that, or you're not able to do that. And it needs to be said, and people need to stop being forced into doing something they're not comfortable with, because the paranoia of getting COVID itself is awful. You've had it through most of lockdown, haven't you?
Yeah.
Paranoid about getting it.
Yeah, really bad. It's not nice. It's scary, and I know a lot of people have had it, and you know, a lot of people have died of it. It's not nice. But I know more people have died of suicide through all this. So that's why we have to be really careful with people.
Absolutely. Because suicide is prevalent. And again, if you know, this cruelness that we've seen from people all through lockdown, it's got to stop, because these people that committed suicide, there was one person who made one comment that tipped them over the edge.
Yeah.
And it has got to stop. And we've all got to start being more responsible for each other and kindness to each other.
Definitely.
You know, like I said, you got to focus more on being like a dog. Dogs aren't like this. And if we're working with these animals, we should behave like them.
Yeah.
You know, and being kind costs absolutely nothing.
It doesn't, no.
Being horrible probably takes it out of you more than
Yeah, it's a lot of energy to be horrible all the time. So I'm pretty sure that, you know, if you are going out your way to be negative and horrible to people every day, that's a lot of energy, you know.
And you're gonna have to deal with more people putting rebuttal comments on your post than your nice a nice post that you shared.
Yeah.
So you just need to think about the kind of attention that you want, the kind of people that you want in your life, and the kind of people that you want to work with, because what you set attracts others. And if you're not very nice, you're not going to attract very nice people into your life.
No.
It's common sense. So just remember, stop doing people down. Stop trying to embarrass people. Remember, your clients aren't professional dog trainers and behaviorists. Even if you are, like I said, remember at A&E, they don't pull you down. They don't embarrass you for not knowing their secret code that they're filling in on forms and what the nurse and doctor's discussing. So why should we do that to clients? And just remember, not everybody is wealthy and affluent, and you know, it's not one rule for one and one rule for the other. So if your owners are on crowd giving, begging for help, and your professionals are, there's no difference, because we're all equals. At the end of the day, that's what we need to remember. Nobody's better than anybody else.
Definitely. All right, guys. Is there anything else you want to add, Tasha?
No.
No.
So if you've got any questions or anything, or you want to reach out, then we'll leave our details
Yeah.
for you to contact us. Same as always.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.